Title: The Quiet Rise of Camille. Get out, you failure. We don't need some uneducated parasite dragging this family down. That's what my father shouted, his voice splintering with fury, veins pulsing at his temple as he pointed to the door like I was dirt beneath his shoe. Behind him, my mother stood silently, arms folded, giving a firm nod. No hesitation. No regret. I'm Camille. Wherever you are, if you're watching this, stay with me. Has your own family ever stomped on your dreams, only to come crawling back when those very dreams turned into the lifeline they desperately needed? It was supposed to be a simple dinner, a rare trip back home just to reconnect. Instead, it felt like I was walking into a firing squad. I sat at the table still in jeans and sandals, casually talking about what I'd been working on. Tech projects. Real estate deals. Startups I had equity in. Not that any of it mattered to them. You didn't even finish college, my father sneered. And you're still bouncing from cafe to cafe on that laptop like one of those online scammers, my mother added with disdain. Then came the dagger. You're playing pretend. Sooner or later, you'll come crawling back like always. I stared at them, at those smug, dismissive faces, and at the living room I once helped renovate with my own 2 hands. And in that moment, I didn't feel hurt. Just clarity. I stood, slid my chair back neatly, grabbed my purse and keys, and said a single word. Okay. They laughed as I walked out. But what they didn't know, that so-called cafe scammer had just finalized a $7.8 million deal. That the uneducated trash they wrote off owned a majority stake in a fintech startup now valued north of $200 million. I wasn't leaving in disgrace. I was walking away in silence, straight to my beachfront estate in Florida, where the ocean hears me better than my family ever did. 3 weeks later, the calls began. Not with apologies, but with desperation. Their accounts had been frozen. Their house was nearing foreclosure. Their golden retirement fund? A Ponzi scheme. And suddenly, the trash they threw out was starting to look a whole lot like salvation. But I don't answer every knock at the door. Especially not when the last time they saw me, they slammed it shut in my face. The first call came on a Thursday. Blocked number. Straight to voicemail. Then more. By Sunday, I had 16 missed calls, all from my mother. Yes, the same woman who once called me a mistake that never learned her place. Now she was leaving voicemails that started with, "Camille, honey, we really need to talk," and ended with, "Please, it's urgent. Just call us back." I didn't. I was too busy watching the sun rise from my balcony, coffee in hand, coffee made by my private chef, by the way, while reviewing a third offer from a venture capital firm practically begging to buy into my newest platform. Life gets awfully peaceful once you mute the noise from people who only ever clapped when you were small. And then, they showed up. I was coming back from yoga when security called. "Ma'am, there's an older couple downstairs. They say they're your parents." I paused, then smiled. "Tell them I'm unavailable. And please remind them, unapproved visitors aren't permitted in this building." 10 minutes later, I checked the security footage. There they were, my father pacing, my mother wiping away tears she hadn't earned. They looked around, dazed, as if only just realizing the height of the ladder they'd kicked me off of. They didn't recognize the life I'd built, because they never believed I could build anything at all. When I left college, they held a family meeting, without me. Decided I was wasting my life. Told everyone I was freeloading, working for some shady website, barely scraping by. What I was really doing? Designing a financial algorithm that now fuels one of the fastest-growing credit unions in the Southeast. My team calls me the quiet billionaire in sneakers. Me? I just call it freedom. Freedom from judgment. From shame. From begging people who never believed in me to suddenly see my worth. Later that night, a final message came from my dad. "We're in trouble. We need your help. Just a small loan to get us through." I read it twice. Then typed back 3 words. "I thought I was trash." Delivered. Read. No reply. Because if someone throws you out like garbage, they don't get to knock on your mansion's gate asking to borrow gold. The silence afterward lasted 3 days. No calls. No texts. No desperate voicemails begging for a second chance. Just silence, the kind that creeps in when people are finally forced to look at the mirror they've spent years avoiding. But I wasn't waiting on them. I was finalizing a new round of funding with Silicon Valley and a private equity group from Dubai. Reviewing plans for my second property, a waterfront penthouse in Miami. Living the exact life they swore I could never earn without their blessing or a degree. Then, on day 4, my sister called. We hadn't spoken in over a year, not since she made fun of my internet money hustle at Thanksgiving while sipping wine I'd paid for. "Camille," she said softly. Softer than I'd ever heard her. "They're not okay. Dad's had 2 panic attacks. Mom hasn't been eating. I think they know they went too far." I stayed silent. She went on. "I'm not asking you to forget. I'm just asking you to help them stay afloat. They're scared." I finally spoke. "Do you remember what Mom called me? What Dad screamed in my face?" There was silence on the line. Then my sister whispered, "Yes." "Then let me ask you something," I said, my voice steady and unshaken. "If they hadn't lost everything, would they have reached out at all?" She didn't answer, because she didn't have to. We both knew. They didn't long for me. They missed the version of me who never pushed back. The girl who paid their bills behind the scenes. Who brought gifts after being told she was worthless. That girl doesn't live here anymore. In her place stands a woman who wears serenity like armor, who no longer feels the need to explain her wins to people who never learned to spell respect. Later that night, I composed an email to my parents. Professional. Direct. Final. "I'm sorry you're in this situation. Truly. But this is the life you insisted I wasn't worthy of. The same one you mocked me for building. I won't finance comfort for people who chose cruelty when kindness would have cost them nothing. I wish you healing, from afar. Camille." No tears. No trembling hands. I just hit send. Because closure doesn't always come wrapped in apologies. Sometimes, it's just the quiet decision to never return to the places that made you feel small, even when they leave the door wide open. By the weekend, the press caught on. Not to the drama, but to the legacy. A headline ran in a leading business publication. From college dropout to fintech phenomenon. How Camille R. built a $45 million empire from scratch. There was a photo. I was barefoot on the balcony of my beach house, wind in my hair, coffee mug in hand. The mug read, "Self-funded." The story spread like wildfire. Old classmates messaged me. Ex-managers reached out. 2 former boyfriends suddenly believed in me all along and wanted to grab coffee. And yes, my parents saw it. I know because my sister sent me a screenshot of the family group chat. "Mom, she's humiliating us in public. This isn't necessary. Dad, she's just seeking attention. Always has been a performer." There it was. Even after the world applauded the woman they discarded, they still couldn't say one word. Proud. But I didn't need it anymore. Because the world never validated me. I validated me. That Sunday, I hosted a small gathering. Just 10 people. Investors who believed before the profit. Friends who stayed when family slammed doors. We raised our glasses. To building something real. To breaking out of rooms we were told we'd never escape. To surviving the silent burden daughters carry when they succeed without permission. As the sun kissed the horizon, someone asked, "Camille, do you think you'll ever forgive them?" I didn't answer right away. Not because I was unsure, but because some truths deserve to be spoken with care. "I already have," I said quietly. "But forgiveness doesn't include a key to the front door." Everyone nodded. Because they understood. Forgiveness is mine to give. Access is not. Later that night, another message came through. Blocked number. No name. "We saw the article. Can we come visit?" I didn't reply. Because they didn't want to see me. They wanted to stand next to the success they never believed in. And there was no space at my table for people who laughed while I built it. Monday morning, my lawyer called. "Camille, your parents' financial advisor reached out. They're asking if you'd consider a short-term loan to cover property taxes. Looks like they're 6 months behind." I let the pause sit in the air before answering, cool and composed. "Send them my rates. Strictly business." He chuckled, thinking I was joking, until he realized I wasn't. His tone shifted. "Understood. Because this wasn't personal anymore. It was transactional. They taught me early that if I wasn't worthy of love as a daughter, then I shouldn't offer grace like one. I wasn't cold. I was clear. As clear as they were when they labeled me useless. As clear as Dad was when he jabbed his finger toward the door and said, "Get out." Now, the door was locked, the welcome mat gone, and the threshold guarded by the value they refused to see in me. That week, they tried a different tactic. My aunt reached out. "Camille, sweetheart, I know they were harsh, but they're old school. They didn't mean it like that." But they did. Every word. Every insult. Every moment they made me feel like a disgrace for choosing a path they couldn't understand. Every scoff when I said I was learning to code. I remember once hearing Dad tell the neighbor I did computer stuff online, probably just a glorified receptionist. That receptionist now owned 2 corporations, a dozen rental properties, and 4 registered trademarks. The trash they tossed out now had trash bins worth more than their mortgage. Still, I responded kindly to my aunt. I've forgiven them, but I'm not responsible for them. And that, right there, was the real boundary. Because people like them confuse access with affection. They think family means I owe them loyalty, even when they offered none in return. But my support isn't free. It's earned. And they never made the down payment. Instead, I made one. On a second beach house in Destin. Fully furnished. Ocean view. Paid in full, no financing. Because while they held tight to ego, I invested in serenity. And peace? Peace doesn't call you, low life. Peace doesn't scream, get out. Peace opens the door only to those who remember what it cost you to walk through it. By Friday, desperation turned theatrical. A padded envelope arrived. No return address. But the handwriting? I recognized it instantly. My mother's handwriting was soft, rounded, and deliberate, like everything else about her. Always careful. Always reserved. And always trying to fit herself into something 2 sizes too big. It started the way these things often do. "Camille, we know we weren't perfect. We thought we were doing what was best for you." But before long, the sentiment spiraled into a tangle of excuses. "We were afraid. We didn't get your decisions. You needed us, and we weren't ready to need you." Then came the inevitable. "Is it too late to begin again?" There were no acknowledgments of the names they called me. No recognition of the pain they inflicted. Just softened memories laced with guilt-wearing perfume. And at the very bottom, scrawled in shaky ink, one final line. "We'd love to see the beach house sometime." Of course they would. Because it was never about me. It was about what I had. Not about love. About proximity to the life they once claimed was a fantasy. I folded the letter in quarters and fed it to the shredder without a second thought. Because here's what they still didn't understand. You don't get to abandon someone, then ask for a tour of the kingdom they built from the ruins you left them in. They had a daughter, sharp, faithful, quietly unbreakable, and they threw her away because her definition of success didn't match theirs. Now that her name was sitting in bold print on Forbes' 40 under 40 list, suddenly she was worth remembering. But I wasn't the girl desperate for approval anymore. I was the woman making decisions. And mine was simple. No visits. No tours. No returns. Instead, I rang my assistant. Set up the shoot at the new house. Golden hour. Clean lines. Minimalist layout. And tell the editor, yes, I'll do the cover. If they were going to see me now, it would be from afar. No apologies. No performances. Just reality, encased in linen and glass and unshakable dignity. And when they scroll past those photos, when they squint at the success they couldn't recognize when it was still in seed form, they'll realize what they truly missed. Not just the wealth. Not just the ocean views. They missed me. The daughter who could have carried them all, if only they'd held her with care instead of contempt. The magazine hit shelves that Tuesday. Full cover. Full frame. Barefoot on marble. Wind in my hair. Smile steady. Quiet. Untouchable. The headline? Told she'd never make it. Now she doesn't answer unknown numbers. Inside, 6 pages told the truth. The dismissal, the rebuild, the rise. No fluff. No drama. Just facts. A young woman cast aside for defying expectations, now the head of a financial empire. No degree. No regrets. Only outcomes. By Thursday, their entire social circle had read it. Church members. Neighbors. Former colleagues. I know because my cousin forwarded a text from my father. I'm tired of everyone asking about her like she's some kind of hero. She betrayed us. No, Dad. I didn't betray you. You let me go. And I lived. That's not betrayal. That's transformation. By Friday, another envelope arrived. No flowery language this time. Just a line that said, "We see now we were wrong. If there's still a place for us in your life, we'd be thankful." Mom and Dad. I sat with it. Quietly. 4 hours. There was a time when I would have broken down. Dialed the number. Begged for a fresh start. Felt grateful just to be acknowledged. But that version of Camille doesn't live here anymore. I don't need to be chosen by those who never saw me in the first place. So I penned a response, not to reopen the wound, but to stitch it closed. Dear Mom and Dad, you taught me how it feels to be discarded. And in doing so, you taught me to build a life no one could take away. I forgive you. But forgiveness is not an invitation. You won't be part of this next chapter. Because you tore out every page that could have included you. I wish you healing. Truly. But from the distance you chose. Camille. No signature flourish. No warmth. Just resolution. Clean. Final. Earned. Because family isn't just blood. It's built. Out of mutual respect. Out of truth. Out of people who clap when you rise, even if they had to watch you do it without their help. It's been 6 months. 6 months since they called me garbage. Since I walked out of their house with nothing but a purse and a quiet, okay. And a backbone they never thought I had. Since then, I've launched 2 new ventures. Backed 5 women-led companies. And started a scholarship fund for girls like me, bright, underestimated, unwelcome at the table. Most mornings, I wake to ocean sounds. To stillness. To room to stretch into the woman I was never allowed to become. The calls have stopped. The letters have ended. And the silence? It doesn't sting anymore. It hums. Because I let go of chasing a version of love that was always on conditions. As long as I stayed obedient. As long as I didn't outgrow their vision. As long as I didn't outshine their expectations. But I outgrew all of it. I rewrote the story. And I don't need their chairs at the table anymore. I've built my own hall, with cathedral ceilings, wide windows, and space reserved only for those who believed before the glow-up. People sometimes ask if I ever regret cutting them off. If I ever feel lonely. Here's my answer. Loneliness is living in a home where your voice doesn't matter. Peace is waking up in a place you built yourself, where every wall echoes back. You made this. So no, I don't regret walking away. They thought kicking me out would destroy me. What they didn't realize. They were unlocking the door to my freedom. And if they ever drive past this house, this quiet sanctuary filled with soft light and louder legacy, they'll know. The daughter they dismissed as a failure? She became the architect of everything they needed. And everything they'll never touch again.